Yes, hello everybody. If you're coming straight from Channel 31's In Pit Lane program to this is what we call Full Course Yellow. It's an after show get together where a few of us are associated with the show, or some of the crew and other associates get together and just basically have a chat about motorsport and the week in general, and just a few friends catching up for the day. So welcome to everybody. If you're watching for the first time, we'd love you to be a part of it all. You can make a comment either through the Facebook page or on the chat on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel. So head along there, and we will bring up your various comments. Well, providing of course they're fit to publish, and some of the regulars. MadCow Mark is with us again. G'day, Mark. How are you? Thanks for joining us once again. Paul van der Acker is with us again as well. So g'day, guys. Thanks a lot for joining us once again. And of course, joining us as per usual is our regular cast. We're minus one Stuart tonight. Stuart has actually been sort of out slaving at the coal mines, and he's putting his head up. So g'day Tony. Tony is joining us as well.
Do you want some more mayonnaise there, Brett?
What was that?
Do you want some more mayonnaise there?
Mayonnaise.
Yeah, lay it on with a trowel.
Richie knows what I'm talking about. Yeah, he's on to it as well. He's laughing. I was going to say, padding for Stuart. He doesn't need padding for out the coal mines, the coal face. I don't know.
Well, he's been working. He's been working hard, and he's been working long hours. So good luck to him. So he's doing a web series, and we're just about to be joined. We don't have a Stuart, but we do have, introducing once again, Richard Outram is joining us
from the
wilds of
gentlemen. Good evening.
Good evening. Good day, Richard. How are you?
Richard?
Very good, thank you.
How's
I'll see if I can tune my sound up a bit.
Yeah, your sound is not bad.
Got a bit of echo there too. Got a bit of an echo there, Richard.
Well, I think we all have actually. I must admit, I haven't put the headphones in tonight, and they're out in the thing. But if it's not too,
Richie's gone heavy duty up top there with the headphones. I've just gone.
Always do.
The basic, yeah.
Exactly. I'll tell you what. About the headphones.
Just before we get too much into other subjects, you need those heavy duty headphones when we're down at the Mr. Boogeyman bars. Some of those bands really belt out some tunes and leave your ears ringing next day. They're that good.
Yeah, well, I mean, we had a very different band like that. We had Lorenzo Ianotti and his band on last night, who were very different from a lot of the band. I mean, we always like variety on our music on In Pit Lane. Yeah, Paul is incredulous. Stuart working? Yes, no, it has and does happen. So
you have to see it to believe it, Mr. Acker. I'll tell you, he has to see it. He tries hard, but we'll have to go out there. We'll have to put a secret cam in, some sort of like a mosquito bug like they have in the spy movies, and send it out on set, because yeah, he could be faking it. Who knows? It could be just talk. So yeah, you got to put it there, Mr. Acker.
But Box joining us once again. Yeah, g'day, Box. Or if I may call you Box,
Mr. Box.
Great,
you.
Thanks for that. Yeah, look, Joey was fantastic. I'll let you into a suit of that. We were going to. I mentioned last week we had the Great Emu War casualties on at the tune-up at the Mr. Boogeyman bar last week, and they were brilliant. We were going to take out the program with that, and I also was going to feature a little bit more stuff that we've got. Still one story from Mallala, from historic Mallala, with one of the Formula 5000s, the Lola T142. That was running around there. We did the story on that, and we were going to run both of those, but Joey just had so much to say, and he was and I think he spoke a lot of sense too. I mean, especially I was really impressed with the fact that he was. Yeah, like he wasn't sort of totally obsessed. Everyone you talk to, I mean, is saying, look, the logical thing, and he was saying, look, the logical thing is I want to be in supercars, I want to be in, if I want to make a living as a racing driver, you want to be in supercars. But I really like the fact that he said, I want to make a living as a racing driver. I'd really, really like to be able to do it as driving S5000s and being a professional racing driver at the single-seater level in Australia. And he also mentioned after the event that he was looking at things like like the Asian Le Mans series and those sort of things, but they were all asking for big budgets. He had certainly had talks with, with teams in both those series, and unfortunately, they just basically wanted big budgets. And he's not coming from like this, from a background of having enormous wealth or anything. It's like a lot of stories. It's like Tom Randall and Anton De Pasquale, a lot of those other, just average people. They really, really struggle once they get over to Europe. And as I said tonight, it's not a matter of running out of talent, it's a matter of running out of money. So, but he's come back and he's really keen about S5000. I think that's really interesting, the fact that he said a lot of the contacts, the people that he raced with and against in Europe, in both German Formula 4 and then later in Formula 3, a lot of the drivers over there were really, really interested in becoming a part of the international series, of the short international series that's coming up, starting at Albert Park at the Grand Prix, and then going on to Mount Panorama. Because, I mean, if you're a driver from overseas and somebody says, hey, you could get the opportunity to drive a 500-plus horsepower open-wheeler around Mount Panorama and Albert Park for good measure, and the streets of the Gold Coast in front of possibly a full house of people, I think you're going to probably want to do that.
You reckon you get some takers, do you?
Yeah. I think I think so. I think that any race driver worth their salt would be sitting there going, open wheeler, 540 horsepower, Mount Panorama.
Conrod straight.
It wouldn't look too bad on the CV, would it? I mean, even just a participation little insert on your CV, Mount Panorama, open wheeler, and the horsepower you just mentioned, Brett. How fast were you going down Conrod Straight? Oh, we broke records. Really?
The thing is, they won't be all that fast down Conrod, because the way that the category is being developed, and the way they've set it up is that, they probably won't be fast. Really, the fastest cars down Conrod Straight so far haven't been the supercars, and they haven't been the GT cars for the 12 hours. They've been the sports sedans. I mean, Keith Carling in his Nissan sports sedan years ago went well over 300 kilometres per hour. The other things that were really, really fast there were the NASCARs when they ran there. Because they don't have the big wings and all the rest of it, all that downforce. They're made to slip through the air pretty sleekly, and they were flying as well. Also, the fastest of the 12-hour cars was actually not the GT3 cars. It was the Daytona.
Wasn't the Continental?
Coupe, Richard Bendel's car.
Wasn't the Bentley Continental?
That was passing. That was embarrassing, sort of, like 500,000 Lamborghini Hurricanes and AMG Mercedes and that. This sort of, locally built, special, Chev-powered special from down Moorabbin Way was, strolling past these cars on Mount Straight.
Nothing against the Porsches, the Mercs, or the Bentleys, or whatever it was, all the ones we watched last year back in the start of 2020. You'd actually think it'd be the GTR Godzillas, the latest spec GT3 ones going down. They'd be top of the pops. But no, it wouldn't surprise me, because with the sports sedans, you can basically belt it out as hard as you possibly can within the regulations, and it's there's an infinity rule almost to a certain extent, because it all comes down to, it's not the most horsepower, the fastest car. You've got to have that balance. You've got to keep the damn thing on the track and grip and aero and downforce. So you can go a million miles an hour down there on a push bike and two wheels with no motor, but you've got to be able to handle it.
Well, I must admit, next time you talk to our mate Christian Schmidt, to ask him about going down Conrod Straight on a bicycle and what happened when the police caught him doing it, and timed how fast he was going.
Well, so he overtook the police car, did he?
He was moving. He got some legs up. Incidentally, Mark, I'm not sure. I can't hear anything that sounds like, because I honestly can't say that I know what scary porn sounds like, because I have absolutely none of my porn is scary. Trust me, none of it at all.
Okay, I just thought it sounded like Godzilla in the background there for a second, but then again, it could have been just someone's TV. But or they were doing some filming on the old set of Richie's got a picture of in pit lane up there as a backdrop tonight.
That's it from the studio. And speaking of which, I think I might have mentioned on tonight's show, but in pit lane,
you're in the shot too.
Yeah, well, there you go. Look, there's two of me. I'll stop that on. Yes, that's other world stuff. That's
There's a doppelganger.
Yeah, Inception stuff. Dave Stillwell's heading down. He's actually listening to us while driving, so we're doing radio.
Oh,
that's pretty cool.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to In Pit Lane. This is Full Course Yellow. I'm Brett Ramsey, and the relaxing sounds of Richard Outram. Richard.
Ring sounds.
Moving on to our special artist of the evening, we have got Green Day with the American Idiot album playing in acoustic version by the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra, fully backed up by Gene Simmons with Kiss.
I remember years ago that I don't know if you probably nobody would probably remember this, but on ABC Classic, they used to have a show called Acoustica Nova. This was back when I was around 18. It was all experimental computer generated music. It was mostly out of Germany or
Max
Russia,
Headroom.
and it was wilder than that. It was really bizarre. But the guy who used to host it, it was Czechoslovakia. I think it was something like Vladimir Shavonovich or something. I forget his name. But he had the most amazing radio because they'd play this weird music, and then there'd be silence, and then you'd get. That was movement for 3 computer, composed by the audio technical department of the University of Onslow. And now, it was fabulous just to listen to him.
He was bursting with charisma, wasn't he?
He was fantastic. I used to listen religiously.
How did he contain himself?
He was just, and he never got, but if you heard the music, you'd know because it was all sort of,
beep, classical techno.
Beep. Bloop.
Oh, so we've got him to blame for that bloody frog song years ago, have we? That's where it stemmed from. So anyway,
cue the Phil Collins.
No, In the Air Tonight. Everyone's been trying to cover that lately, and there's been some absolute abysmal versions of In the Air Tonight. They need to stop trying to cover it. Just leave it alone.
Sean's still waiting for American Idiot. You don't have to wait long.
I'm not going to go. Yeah. Sean, I'm not going political tonight. I do like Green Day's statements in political correctness, and remember they are Canadian, so they do have a bit of background. They can knock the Yankees as much as they want, but
listen. Before we get ourselves into too much trouble, I think we'd better move on to some motorsport because we sort of got off. As I said, I mean this is just a chat between friends, and I mean we've got off the wagon a bit, but last weekend, of course, at the Bend in Adelaide was the latest round of the Supercars, and I think we had 3 pretty good races. I mean, certainly on Saturday the weather contributed a lot to that, and a great drive in both qualifying and the race by Andre Heimgartner. I mean, we've always known that he's a very good driver, and we had the opportunity of finally getting that result on the board. Pete, you were saying before we went on air that you watched the race. What did you think of it? It was as I said, I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it. I still don't like the races being all the same lengths. Along for when we can go back to having say 150k race on the Saturday race and then a 200k race on the Sunday, but maybe that's an anomaly this year, and they'll get back to it next year. But the thing about Taylor Bend is, even last year, it always brought up different results. So
I think if you have a look at the racing at the Bend, for a lot of things over in its short history, the racing seems to be pretty good. I think that's I've heard a lot of criticism of the Bend, and people saying, it's soulless and it's. It's boring flat. And it's flat and all the rest. Yeah, but I mean, It always seems to produce pretty good racing. There are some elevation changes. They haven't just sort of, so they've built a few hills there. They're not silly hills. They're not like, Bob's Knob out at Calder, which was just, let's just put a big pile of dirt there and run over the top of that, So that's what we christened it Bob's Knob.
You just slipped that one right in there, didn't you, Brett?
Everyone else called it Mount Jane. When we ever called action from there, when we were doing the state rounds and that, we always called it, over the top of Bob's Knob.
Oh, over the top. He's flipping in and over the top. You've been knocking the top off it next. Just a quick response to Mr. Stillwell down the bottom there. Take inspiration from garbage. I'm only happy when it rains. So when you go on down the Phillip Island this weekend, you said you're a bit deterred. Yeah, there you go. That Bernie's idea to have sprinklers at every race wasn't a bad one. Yes, look, we all enjoy that. I think driver today, I'm not, obviously, I've got no affiliation to any particular driver in the super farts, but how about Percat's drive? That was just a great strategy, of course, from BJ there, but he came from absolute last, and I think he finished up about 8th in the first race, so it just goes to say you can pass more than one car in a race if you get your strategy right, and going back to what you said, Brett, about the bend, been there, done that. It is 4.9 Ks. It is 18 to 20 corners anyway. And don't forget, they can alter the track if they want to. They have the long course, which is 7+ Ks as well too, and make them a bit of fun. So there you go, Peter. As you said, it can be not as boring as you want. If you want it to be, you can change the course or change the length of it and change the laps and so forth.
Which they did last year, and they're talking about wanting to race on the 7-kilometre track, having 2 races, one on that track and the 7-kilometre track in the future.
I think they're going to use the 7 kilometres. They're going to use the full track. I think that it does need to be a long distance race. I think it'd be a waste. I think it'd be something different too. I mean, if they're not. It seems that it's going to be very, very difficult to bring back the Adelaide 5. So why not have like an Adelaide 500 that is a proper one-off 500-kilometre race and have 2 drivers and have it. I know for some reason they seem to not want to have long distance races apart from. They want Bathurst to be the long distance race and that's it. But it would be real. I'd like to see more long distance races. I'd like to see them go back to having an endurance championship within a championship or a separate championship, where we could bring back the Sandown 500, or if Sandown's going to be gone by that time, bring in the Adelaide 500 and have a proper Gold Coast, say a proper Gold Coast 400 with 2 drivers and. Just give us something a bit. Just give us something a bit different, and let them have sort of like a lead up race to Bathurst, which helps bring up the hype and gives the teams a bit of that long distance experience and gives the co-drivers a decent run at it and a bit of decent track time. Might actually, because they're saying they're doing it for budgetary reasons. But if you imagine, there could be people who would bring dollars. I mean, if you said, for co-drivers, yes, you can be a co-driver in our team for our second car or something. If you bring $250,000 or something, and you're going to get 3 races, so they'd probably get that, I think.
Quick comment on that one then, Mr. Stillwell, Dave. If you are listening, I hope you're not driving, because if you are texting those messages in, you might end up in Sam's Dam. So just be careful while you're texting and driving, if that's the case. Down the bottom there. 2, I think that's a great idea. As you said, add some spice of life to the races and change the format a bit. And I'm going to put it out to the listenership and watching and listening to us right now. If you're going to have a celebrity race again, what car would you like to see? And don't everyone say that they want the Ford Courier or anything like that. Pick a car out, and Richard, you're not allowed to say Hyundai XLs either.
No.
So
I was going to say perhaps Renault Clios or something like that. They've got a bit of pace on them.
Yeah, they'd be good. The Clio Sports would be good. The new Toyota, the Yaris, the GR Yaris Rally would be good, and the newly released Corolla would be good. I'd like to see them go really stupid. I'd like to have a bunch of celebrities, one make series in Lamborghini Huracans or McLarens. McLarens would be good. Whatever McLaren are releasing, McLaren have got a big announcement.
You're a bastard,
coming up. I think they've got it coming up today or something. There is something coming up about.
I can see every junkie diving through the spare parts bin already looking for their anyway. Okay, carbon fiber just flying everywhere.
How about let's get rid of a few more T86s then?
Well, they're there, aren't they? They're there, and they're kitted out. So
there's a lot on the road. There's plenty on the road of them too. So
yeah, there's no shortage of them. I tell you what, I am seeing a lot of around here. I don't know about you guys, but certainly around this suburb. And let's face it. I mean, this is not. Without wanting to cast too many aspersions on my neighbours and friends and myself, but it's not exactly the most affluent suburb in Melbourne, but we are crawling with Teslas at the moment. You can't, you're crawling over the top of the damn things. They're everywhere. I think just today I saw about 5 of them, running around, different models, different colours. They're everywhere.
Bitcoin. They're all selling Bitcoin.
Yes.
Turning into the Frankston of the
South. Isn't accepting them as payment for as of yesterday for a Tesla. Yeah, it's all over, people. It's all gone.
PVDA, I've forgotten that they'd use those V8 Commodores over there at Adelaide once. Yeah, that was carnage.
I don't know. For those of us who are old enough to remember, and I mean, there are a couple of us on the on the panel. Back years ago with the Australian Grand Prix at Calder, they had a couple of celebrity races, including one with Commodores, which included people like Ayrton Senna, Niki Lauda, Alain Prost, and of course people John Bow. The race, if John's watching, John took part in that race. Brocky, of course, lots of the locals. I mean, basically pretty much stock standard Commodores at the time. So that was probably 1980. 1979, 1980, or 1980, 1981. I forget the exact year, but it was sometime just around the time of the F5000 finished, and they went to Formula Atlantic, or Formula Pacific. So, they had a couple of interesting celebrity races there, and they also had one. They had one for VW Beetles, the new era of VW Beetles, and Richard, you might remember that at the Adelaide Le Mans round, which was actually. Yes. Which, if memory serves me right, was actually won by Drew. I think it was actually won by Drew Beecham. I
was on a corner. I couldn't actually see too much.
Yeah, you were flagging at that time, weren't you?
Yes.
You were there, and we were there.
There were lots of bits and pieces on the corner.
I can imagine. Yeah, but that was
hopefully none of yours.
No, other more expensive cars.
Okay, now this was at Calder, you said, did you?
No. This was at the Adelaide.
I was just making sure Bob's Knob didn't end up on one of the corners there at Calder.
Brett can tell you something about Bob's Knob, and that the drags and his new promotions or publicity officer. Remember that, Brett?
We won't go there.
No, I'm talking about that. He is dead.
I mean, the dead can't sue, but the dead do have legal procedures. Yes, so we'll just leave. We can leave that alone.
They still have lawyers.
Who invited him? Oh, look, Richard dropped out.
Richard, if you're going to start talking about that stuff, can you please shut the blinds and shutters behind your head there in the room so no one can hear you? All right, because your blinds are open behind you. Okay, so just shut them down, then we can talk about.
Yeah, that celebrity race is on YouTube, as Paul's pointing out, that you can find that if you have a look around. So it's amazing what is there around. There's some people. So I saw just recently somebody has just put up a whole bunch of old VHS tapes from Amaroo Park and a couple from Adelaide from around that sort of like the late 70s, early 80s period of time. So
we've got some bedside tablet reading to do now, haven't we? That sounds good.
Yeah, there's some good stuff, some interesting stuff there, and you realise how much the sport has changed, and not necessarily for the better in many respects. But
No,
I hate to be one of those, back in my day. But back in my day,
back in everyone's day, there was a bit more biff, wasn't there? Those tapes would probably.
there was. It was there was a lot more variety, and it just a lot more not just within the fields, but also in the races that were run. Well, it was a pretty good card at the Bend, I thought. The GTs, I thought Brett Hobson, on speaking of the bad conditions and good strategies, Brett Hobson in the Nissan GTR on Saturday in the first race of the Australian GT Championship. I thought he did a brilliant job. That was a fantastic race in difficult conditions. They pulled the strategy absolutely perfectly, and it paid off. It certainly paid off for him. And then, of course, on the Sunday for the Supercars, we got we got Anton De Pasquale came through for his second championship win, which was great. And then, of course, Cam Waters, who crashed out of the second race. His team did a brilliant job. Rebuilt the damage on the car, jumped back in and won the race
and snagged it at the end there.
And the duel between him and Shane Van Gisbergen was fantastic.
Yeah, I missed a little. Apparently, he did a throwaway comment in jest at the end. Did anyone catch what that was?
Shane had a bit of a dig. Yes, Shane did have a little bit of a.
What did he throw out?
Cam Waters has been saying that there's disparity between the Commodores and the Mustangs, and so Shane, in his press conference on the podium, said, "Oh, I bet he's not complaining about parity now."
Yeah, you got in that dig, which was also picked up, was certainly picked up by the commentators. And of course, speaking of commentators, as we said on the news tonight, and as pretty much everyone here would know, thoughts going out, good wishes, best wishes to Neil Crompton on his just diagnosed with prostate cancer. Once again, it goes without saying, guys, get yourself tested, because it's a very, very common affliction, and if you get it early, it is well and truly treatable. But it's like most of these things, you got to get it early. There's no point sort of putting it off and then finding out, if you'd have come in 12 months ago, But
now it's got hold of you.
Yeah, don't buy a new suit.
Yeah, unless it's black.
Yeah. So but anyway, so good luck to. Good luck to Neil.
Good luck to Crompo and speedy recovery. He said it's only minor at this stage. He's going to keep going, committing to his duties. So he's not going to jump off the wagon yet.
Yeah, so, we've seen Bowie sort of like running out, and as John's been saying, it's been a godsend for him, just because otherwise you sit at home and you sweat over these things, and you've got nothing to do but sort of think about the situation you're in.
Well, Bowie was talking to you and I though, Brett, when we were at the launch of the sports sedans and off camera, and I'm sure he touches on it from time to time. It still knocks you around.
Oh yeah, I mean he was saying that he was the treatment that the treatment was flooring him, and anybody who's gone through that, and I know, unfortunately I do know a few people. Chris, you can say firsthand.
Yes.
I mean the
you've got the
chemo and all. Yeah, the chemo that you had. I mean, sort of everything's in remission now, but the chemo's left you with with lasting problems, hasn't it?
It has, just a little bit of damage, yeah.
Yes, so so these things, and it's like it's like any sort of treatment. I mean, there's no such thing as a drug that doesn't have some sort of side effects, and when you're dealing with something like this, there are some serious side effects sometimes with in treating cancer. So it does knock you around, and that's but I mean,
sometimes they're good. Ask the Rolling Stones; they've come out better for it from the other side. But anyway, that's just I
don't think those were chemo drugs.
Increasingly, some of them are.
Party drugs somehow.
Yeah. I mean, they've come out from the better. A couple of them have come out from better from the other side. Actually, they've probably improved their charisma. Anyway, what's PVDA got for us down there? He wants
just about the
Geminis.
Yeah,
Jesus,
we've had so many to name, but a few. Yeah, I mean, you could add Alpha, and you got the Renault, you got the Alfa Romeo series.
The Mazda 121.
Lasers, yeah.
Anyone remember the Starion race at Adelaide with it was a celebrity race.
Yeah.
They totaled so many cars in that event. They made them go for a racer license after that. And you don't remember that one?
I remember it. I remember some of those the celebrity races at the Australian Grand Prix at Albert Park too, where they would total so many cars, and it was a running joke that if you went to a deal or whoever was sponsoring the show, whoever was sponsoring the that particular race, if you went sort of 6 months later and you could get a special like a too good to be true deal on that a particular model, everyone said just pull up the make sure you pull up the carpet and just make sure that there's no place where there might have been a couple of holes drilled in for a roll cage somewhere along the.
Just before we let it slide too much, Richard, I think you need the right of reply here. I think Jimmy said, have you been doing some work in the wind tunnel tonight? Have you on some aerodynamics?
Oh, me?
Yes. Yeah, it says, gee, Richard, your racy hairstyle looks great. Have you been doing? Yes. I'm asking, how did the work with the aerodynamics go in the wind tunnel tonight on the XL, my dear chap?
We have been doing some work on the XL. It went pretty good at Sandown, but the hair is that's ex-helmet hair.
No, that's ex-hair.
Yes. Thank you, Brett. I really appreciate that.
Oh, you can always count on him. Count on Brett for just actually just making it that you think it's going to be a lot better, and he just falls off the edge.
If I lie on the ground, I'll be able to get a more effective kicking.
If you wouldn't mind, I've got a bad back.
Anyway, Paul down the bottom there is talking about the Dire Straits aficionado himself, the lead vocalist, and it was he hasn't got fond memories of Australia. I think that's some of the reasons why he won't come back anymore. He's not too keen on doing a tour here at Ari.
There's been a few of them. Rowan Atkinson hurt himself quite badly, and the funny thing is, of course, Rowan has gone on to be a regular in racing. He races regularly in historic competition in the UK, and he's raced a Ford Falcon Sprint and a Mustang, I think. So he's just
before you move on from Rowan's most famous accident would have to be just after he bought that McLaren F1 in Britain. There, did anyone remember that article?
Yes.
And did anyone see the photographs of him after it? He just bought his McLaren F1. Did you hear what he did with it? Ran it straight up the back of a truck, and there was a lot of everyone. The press got onto it straight away, and they were taking pictures of him standing next to the tow truck and all that sort of stuff. So, you've got Mr. Bean himself. You don't worry about any of the other accidents he has on the track. The McLaren F1, it was a huge bill to get it fixed back to spec as well too.
The funny thing is, I mean, the dangerous thing about all of these particular celebrity races, well, we did dodge a bullet in many respects, because as I kept saying, like with the race at Albert Park and with the Mark Knopfler situation, if it had come out at the end of that race that Mark Knopfler was never going to be able to play the guitar again, or even worse, somebody like a much loved celebrity actually died in a race, our sport would be the worst in the world as far as the media would be up and this is this monstrous terrible thing that has happened. I mean because accidents can and do happen. I mean, and obviously it's very safe, but accidents can happen, and we were really lucky in a way that there weren't much more serious injuries, because Yeah, I mean, if it had, there were a number of footballers, who were currently playing football at the time, who raced in the Celebrity Grand Prix at Albert Park. Now, imagine if sort of your star full forward, goes in hard and breaks his leg in three places.
Well, how about ride days? I mean, they still go on from week to week in existence into this day and age, and a lot of celebrities go for a run with experienced, well-versed drivers. Now, it only takes one little mishap when they are mucking around out there for it to go into a wall. I mean, it has happened many a time in the US. There has been racetracks. I was reading about the Walt Disney. What's the track that was next to Walt Disney World over there in the States there that got shut down about 10, 15 years ago? There was a couple of.
Yeah,
there was a couple.
Yeah.
Now they were seriously trained instructors, drivers, the whole works, and they were putting out a proper car out there. It had the roll cage. It would have had the hands devices, that sort of stuff. And guys went, and there was people accidentally killed in those drive days. And so, it ended up got to a point that they had to shut it down in the end, I think, because of the controversy that was in it. So there's articles on it on the internet to have a look at. But what would be some of the measures you'd have to actually say if you're going to have a celebrity race in a Suzuki 121 or a Renault or something like that? Now you'd have to have mandatory roll cage in it, hands device. I mean,
they all had that anyway. I mean, they were all well and truly.
Yeah, but there'd be minimum standards they could have them in now just to mitigate.
Except as Paul is saying, except for the postie bike race at I don't remember. I don't know if you remember that, Doc. I don't remember the postie bike race.
I've heard it mentioned, but I've never looked at that. I've never interpreted or chased down, and I'll have to do some research on that next week. But that'd be better than a scun knee, wouldn't it? But you'd be probably safer in a billy cart than on a postie bike.
Yes, I think so. Also on the weekend we had Formula One, Pete. Once again, rinse and repeat.
Yes.
Eat, sleep, dominate, win, race, repeat. That's
And Mazepan ignored blue flags again.
Yeah, he's very popular.
Colorblind?
Very popular fellow.
How many fingers am I holding up? Blue colorblind. Nice one, Richie.
Once again, I mean, it showed the strategy. Red Bull again got the strategy badly wrong. I mean, if they'd have brought Max in the lap after Lewis came in for his second stop, they probably Max would have had a much better chance of winning that race. But basically, he was a sitting duck once they decided to have the two-stop strategy. And Lewis just hunted him down, and Max had absolutely no answer to stopping him. I mean, with the combination of the better tyres and DRS, that was.
Look, he was a sitting duck no matter what happened. He was a sitting duck no matter what happened. If he came in after, he would be lucky to have got out in front of him. He would have only just been in front of him, and Lewis would have swept by, or he would have just snuck in behind him. He was never going to repass him. So either or, he was always in for second place.
Yeah, I think that was a good, once again, and yet another great drive by Hamilton. And once again, a lot of people still criticising and saying, he's not as good as he. But gee, it can't be a fluke. I mean, when you win that many races. He's got a great show. As John is saying, that's something, Pete. Daniel Ricciardo. I mean, not a reasonable qualifying, but really a steady performance in the race.
To beat his teammate, which is all you've in the first. It's all you've got to do. But in actual fact, in qualifying, he's 3-1. Against Norris, so he's doing quite well in qualifying. It's just not translating in the race that well. apart from last weekend.
He always seems to have a problem. For some reason, he always seems to have a bit of a problem at the start. Starts are not his.
Yeah.
I think Dan, if you're watching, next time you come back to Australia, get out to when you go back home to Western Australia, head out to the Motorplex out there and do a bit of off-street drag racing. Take your McLaren loaner that they've given you and take it out to the drags over the summer and get those reflexes moving.
Have a go
again.
at the automatic handbrake and see if you can make it work. Hey, I've got two solutions for the Mazepin situation. Solution A would be give him a box of crayons and he can make up his own flags and get them to wave around the track for him if he wants. If he designs his own, he might actually recognise them. Or number two solution, just like the politicians over here when they fire truck up, why not send them to? Well, they send them to empathy training or whatever it may be over here in Australia. I don't know. Never heard what
that's not a world.
He's a race car driver. They've got no empathy.
Hang on, I'm leading up to it. Instead of empathy training, send him to flag marshal school and put him out there on the racetrack for a day as a flag marshal. Then let's see if he can see what colour flags they are and make sure he waves them all while he's out there, especially the blue ones for the cars that are going past and see what. Unless he's got his box of crayons and he's got his own ones, he can hold pictures up.
Not only does he have his own box of crayons, he's got a whole factory that makes the crayons and sells them, and he owns the trucks and the boats and the planes that distribute them. Or at least
he's trying to buy Crayola out, is he?
Yeah, so I mean, you could own them a million times over. Now that's the other controversy from the weekend. Red Bull gives you bending rear wings. I mean, they've had a bit of a problem with this structural integrity of aerodynamic devices.
That's what you call full flat, Dom.
I thought movable aerodynamic devices.
I was going to say I can't get any higher by doing this anyway.
Yeah, well, they said that the FIA have said that they're going to crack down on it fairly soon. They're going to impose some new minimum standards because that's the thing. You're never going to get away with that sort of thing nowadays. There's so many sort of super slow motion cameras by the side of the track that you got no hope of getting away with anything. But I think it is still within the current regulations. And so if it is, then good luck to them if they can get away with it. If it's not illegal, then it's not illegal.
Well, there's the movable aerodynamic devices, I think, is a rule they're not allowed to break.
Oh, so they're not allowed to use those little personal fans that in your face.
There was a thing called the Brabham-Matic blower once upon a time.
Whoa! Whoa! Are we still talking about motor racing?
We're forgetting about. We're forgetting about Calder, all right? We thought we moved on from that.
We're getting real sidetracked tonight, aren't we?
I think that, remember that's how they sort of managed to ban both the Chaparral and the Brabham as fan cars, is because they said, well, the fans are the blades on the fans are in fact movable aerodynamic devices. They did a similar thing. It never got any great publicity. I don't think anybody reported it. I don't know if anybody sort of knew about it when it happened, but years and years ago, there was a guy called Ross Matheson, some of you might remember, raced Porsches here in Australia, and he turned up to Calder Park with some homemade sort of discs on his wheels that had fins on them, and the idea behind them was, as they turned around, they would act as fans to suck extra air through the brakes, and he said that they were basically for cooling, but they knocked, at Calder, the scrutineers knocked him out for that. They said, what do these do? And he said, it's just to drag, and they went, no, that's an movable aerodynamic device, and he had to take them off. So that was that car never raced in that form, but it was an idea that he clearly had, which we've now seen sort of used, and that was like 30 years ago. So that what they're doing now, because they've got the blowers through, they've got to move the fan, move the air through the.
Yeah, just going to be serious for a second. Have a look at some of the Moto GP bikes. I'm going to actually talk serious for a bit. The Moto GP bikes that are out there from week to week at the moment, and if you have a look at the rear wheel, they do have the cowlings on now, which are supposed to assist the aerodynamics and the cooling and the brake pads. So, especially the Ducatis, it's really prominent on the back of those. So have a look at those in the next Moto GP race or YouTube and have a look at these. They you know what the engineers are like, and the your Adrian Newey's of the different aspects of life. They're always working on something as a project on the side to enhance some sort of capability.
Yeah, I think Jimmy's saying the Mercs have helium in the honeycomb tub. Unfortunately, Jimmy, they don't really have honeycomb tubs anymore.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
They were a thing of the past. They might have that was a McLaren thing. They were the pioneers of the honeycomb tub. Paul pointing out that there were some similar on the Group A Tourers. The Commodores had a similar thing where they had like a solid disc on the inside, and then they had fins on the outside, and they actually got through. And I think the Works Toyotas. But as we know, Richard, having heard our friend Claude
Tico Williams.
Claude
yeah.
there, we know a bit about some of the things that were happening in the Group A days, particularly with Works Toyotas, which we won't go into, but it's a fascinating story, and we must really try to get Claude on one night and have a chat with. Oh, he's so clever. So it's so fun. If you ever get the opportunity to do a seminar with Claude Rowell, bloody get out there and throw money at it. It's not cheap, but it's worth every cent of it. I think Richard would agree, wouldn't you, Richard?
I still tell the stories.
As a side note, Brett, you mentioned Commodores and those wheel covers they have. I think the VN and VP still have them as a standard item for a car when they're driving down the road, don't they? Have wheel covers on the side of those.
They did run them. Those blue Group A SS Commodores, the Brock Commodores.
They're still standard on the road.
They ran a version of that on the road. I think that was probably for homologate. That's probably how they got them through. They were probably
and every time you pull up at a set of traffic lights around Melbourne, you can see them the broken plastic bits of them on the side of the corner underneath the traffic light as it goes up. They're usually sitting there trashed.
But anyway, we got over the weekend. We also saw Formula 2. Jack Doohan doing pretty well, and he's done well in testing as well. At Jerez, there's been some testing today, and I think Jack was the second fastest overall last time I saw. They're still probably out on the track as we're speaking, so. He was there, and also coming up this weekend, and it'll be on the In-Pit Lane website. We'll put the link up and the embed code there, so you can watch it via. There's the European Le Mans series, and our mate James Allen is back in action there. He's put together a deal to run that this weekend, and that'll be good to see him back in action again.
Quick golf clap. Thank you for the Nürburgring 6-hour qualifying that you posted for us last weekend, Brett. That was good. I tuned in for a while and had that for some bedside table reading. Yeah,
that was a good one. There's so much to watch now coming up on the weekend. Of course, the Victorian State Series is happening. I saw Dave pointing out the weather and all that. I'm actually very glad I won't be going down there this time around. We've done so many wet and cold May and June and July races over 25 years at Phillip Island. It'll be very nice to actually be able to sit at home and watch television and think some other poor bastard is out there sort of standing in the pouring rain and the freezing cold actually filming it. The difference is, of course, they're actually getting paid for it. We'll just point that out.
Yes.
Just before we jump on
Siberia, some of those days when you
that was my spot. Siberia was my spot because hey, you don't feel the cold. Well, yeah, okay, I didn't. But whatever, it was. Yeah, it was Siberia for nothing, and
you got no money.
But also you get, not only do you get cold and wet out there, but as I found out myself, there you get hit by lightning. So that's fun as well. So trust me, thankfully I was in a car when it happened, but that gets your attention.
Just while we're playing Celebrity Squares all around the five of us all here around the circles and stuff like that, you haven't put our captions up tonight. I'd like to hear from all the viewers and listeners, obviously listening in the car as you're going down to Phillip Island, Mr. Stillwell. How many Grand Prix would you like to see Australia have this year or next year?
Well, as many as we can get.
And
I
one
think
in
we'll be
Northern
fine.
Melbourne, one in Footscray. Come by.
Yeah, I like that. The North Melbourne Grand Prix, the Footscray Grand Prix, and the Australian Grand Prix. That'll work.
I think we'll be lucky to get one.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
I reckon.
pessimistic man.
I reckon
One.
you're right, Pete. I reckon we'll be very
Tickets
lucky
haven't
to.
gone on sale yet, and they're usually on sale by now. Sort of.
Have you got ticket tech notifications? Have you, Mr. Pete?
Yes.
Pete certainly
I do,
has,
actually.
yes. He's got always, yeah.
Okay, so well, I expect something on our group chat to know when the tickets are going to be released.
Well,
You can be a notification man, Pete.
They did send out a thing saying basically like if you would like to be notified, that was
Yeah,
this
they
week
did.
was like, yeah, if you would like to be notified, if you are interested in coming, like tell us now, and then the moment we get the clearance, then the go ahead. The problem is still going to be built around the 14-day quarantine. If there's a 14-day quarantine imposed on anybody involved with the Grand Prix, then the Grand Prix is not happening. End of story. The government, both the state and federal governments, will both have to back down and say, okay, we're going to let Formula One and all the hangers on, all the media, all the crews, everybody else who comes into the place, they're all going to come to Australia. They're going to be in the bubble. They'll come in for their 3 or 4 days. They'll have the race. They'll shoot out again. No one. Just imagine the chaos and the controversy. If they come to Australia, they disappear, and 4 or 5 days later we find out there's a whole bunch of somebody snuck out for a rendezvous with the Australian girlfriend and in St Kilda or something, and before you know it, the thing is running rampant through the.
So what you're saying?
It'd be hell to pay.
So what are you saying, Brett? The one in every port rule won't happen. However, just quickly, Paul's down the bottom there. Have a quick look at the caption. This Winton's got some great stuff going on over the next month, which I didn't know.
Speaking of which, next week on the show on In Pit Lane, I had to confirm that we're going to be previewing the historic Winton on next week's show on In Pit Lane on Channel 31. They just told me that they have had a massive response. I mean, basically, they've just had to knock back entries because obviously they're still limited to an extent with COVID, and they've got over 300 entries, bikes, cars, a whole bunch of, and they were saying today, spoke to them today, and they were saying there's a whole bunch of cars and bikes that they haven't seen down at this meeting before. People from interstate who haven't raced for ages, who have just basically been, because they didn't race at all last year, have really got the budget and just said, let's go down. We've always wanted to do the historic Winton in May. Let's go down and do historic Winton. So they've got a lot of people, and they're really excited about the prospects of that race.
So Richard, did you put 10 or 15 entries in, Richard?
I've got 2 cars, but only one's working.
I don't think either of them are eligible for historics, although the Alpha is.
I was going to say that cherry picker you got down there, that qualifies, doesn't it? It's got 4 wheels and goes how many go there? Anyway, just going back half a back step before about you were saying about the quarantine and the days and stuff like that. Hey, the tennis players, they get paid squillions of dollars. They came over and did it for 14 days.
Yeah, they did. But they don't have to race off to another. I mean, both Formula One management, the teams, the drivers, everybody has just the FIA have all said with unequivocally, and that was why Canada was cancelled. It was like, if we've got to do any quarantine, we aren't coming. And so it will have to be a back down.
I've got a solution.
Formula One won't back down.
I've got a solution.
Mate,
rejig the calendar if they can, because we only go off the Bahrain or something usually afterwards or whatever it may be, and make the Australian Grand Prix the last one.
But then they'd need 14 days. They'd need the 14 days beforehand. So I suppose you could technically do it. You could have a round. You could have the penultimate round, and then come here. Have 14 days, run the Grand Prix, and then they'd have plenty of time to get back home and quarantine where they get back home before Christmas, so they could get back with their families. Look, it's probably if they all desperately wanted, as John's pointing out, there's only 4 Grand Slams.
But there's a lot of events they can't. A lot of players complain. Well, not complain. They just said openly out loud that they used to use doing a lot of lead up tournaments and getting fit and staying that, and it was there was a few more injuries that were sustained because they couldn't do the exercise that they need to do.
That was their argument.
So
that
they made some sacrifices, those tennis players, to do that, and look, it was in the end, and it was worth it for all the ones that came across.
Yeah, it was certainly worth it for, because most of them wandered home with a couple of $1 million or something. Interesting that the world's Forbes have released their list of the world's top 10 best paid sports people. Only one motor racer in that, which of course was Mr. Hamilton. So he was the only person who made that list. Top of the list was Conor McGregor, the UFC fighter.
Yeah.
He's had one fight in the last 12 months, and he lost that, but he is still the best paid sportsman in the world.
Hang on, I need to correct you there, Brett. He is the best paid plumber sportsman in the world. He's a professional. He's a professional plumber. He was a tradie when he first started out in his career as life.
He's never going to have to go back to being a tradie again, because no matter how much they get paid plumbers get paid, he's never going to earn the sort of money he's earned in the UFC, and he's done very, very well out of it. He's a great self-promoter. He's quite the character. I'm pretty certain once he's decided to definitely to give the UFC away, I'm pretty certain that we're going to see him pop up in the WWE. He's teased it for a number of years now, and that's where he got a lot of his ideas from in terms of promoting himself. He goes out and he cuts wrestling, pro wrestling style promos, and puts himself over as a character, and it's obviously worked. Good luck to him.
So when he hangs up the cyclone fence, you reckon you'll see him in WWE?
He'll be in the spandex and with the ropes and the turnbuckles and
the loud music and the makeup.
You grunt, old Grove.
What about the mask? You can have the mask.
He might have the mask. Yes. That'll be they'll probably do that. The WWE are just stupid enough to get Conor McGregor in and then change his name and put him behind a mask so nobody knows who the hell he is.
At least to be COVID safe.
What's that, Pete?
At least to be COVID safe.
Look, unfortunately for us, it's not, because there's a whole bunch of wrestlers who are not wrestling right now because they keep getting COVID, because they went, we don't need to worry about COVID, so it's like suddenly there's a hole. Behind the mask, I suppose it depends on if there's there's a hole there, but yes, some of them don't.
Hannibal Lecter hole,
So what will McGregor made $150 million US for his whiskey business alone. Another business income in one match. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so he's done very well. So what a smart thing for someone called McGregor to have a whiskey business. That makes a lot of sense. I haven't had his. I don't know whether his whiskey's available in Australia. If it is, I might have to test. I might have to road test it for just purely professional.
Just quality control that for us, would you, Brett? Just give us and a rating wouldn't hurt as well too, out of 10.
I'll see what I can do. I'll see what
just like they do in the boxing ring. We want some placards with postcards out of 10 on what you think of his whiskey, wouldn't you? Let's just beats up old man. Not for whiskey drinking, and but he is McGregor.
Yeah, he's had a lot of controversy over his career. And once again, now the old, speaking of WWE, the old Eric Bischoff line: controversy equals cash. So it certainly paid off for Conor, but. Anyway, we're sort of drifting off the motorsport again. As we said, next week on the program we will have someone on to talk about the historics at Winton. Would really have liked to have got up there with all of the, but unfortunately it's it's very heavily booked out in terms of accommodation, and with this is the silly thing at the moment. It cost me more. I was saying last night at the Mr. Boogeyman bar when we were recording. Was saying to Stuart about going up for something up in Sydney. Rex right now have promotional flights to Sydney and back, $39 each way. 30 now. I got caught in the rain today, and I got a taxi from Lynbrook, and it almost cost me $30. So it costs pretty much to fly up to Sydney costs $40. So what do we do? $80, under $80 return, $78 return to go up to Sydney and back, or to Adelaide and back. But the problem is when you get up there, you've got to find somewhere to stay. And if you can find anywhere to stay up at Winton this weekend, certainly anything, or next weekend, and certainly the weekend after when the supercars are up there, for anything for under $400 or $500 a night, yeah, you're going to be doing pretty well, because I certainly looked and there was absolutely nothing.
I didn't know you were doing your rendition of Singing in the Rain today. We would have got a camera way out there. But anyway, Lynbrook of all places. So I thought.
Well, as I put on Facebook, I went down. I thought I'll go from a walk, and I thought, I'm going to have. I thought I was going to. The plan was to have today off. And I walked down. I'd had all sorts of things happen today with phone calls and all the rest of it. So I thought, I'm going to go from a walk. It was a lovely morning. The sun was shining. The sky was blue. And I thought, I'll go for my walk, and I'll go the long way, and I'll go to the park, and I'll use the exercise machines, and then I'll undo all that good work by walking down to Kentucky Fried Chicken. And
you went to go see the Colonel. The
I
Colonel.
was going to see the Colonel. And when I got down there, the Colonel's place has been bulldozed. It was in the midst of being bulldozed. And I've walked 7 kilometres.
So you couldn't get your killed effing chooks because
thankfully there is
they bulldoze a chicken farm, and the Colonel's flown the coop.
Well, I was very fortunate, because thankfully, I mean, there was a place called a hotel across the road. So I wandered in there, and they actually have food in these hotels. So I managed to have some food there. But of course, when I came out to walk the distance home again, by that time it was absolutely pouring with rain and fleeing there. Actually, Paul's pointing out the $40 flights and no luggage fare. Actually, the Rex flight does have luggage. Not that I use it. I mean, I've travelled all over, everywhere I've been. Le Mans, I've never had extra luggage.
There you go.
Have carry on.
For KFC, you can get 24 nuggets for $10 at the moment, or you can spend 4 times that amount and get no luggage on Jetstar Rex.
Fly up to. I must admit, I have done that. There were occasions.
The $10 24 nuggets.
No, where I have literally, because the flights have been so cheap, there have been occasions where I have gone up to Sydney for lunch. I have done that in the past.
Yes.
That's not a mystery flight.
Just sort of, it's like, I'm going to...
That's more like the mystery passenger.
That's choose your own adventure. But anyway, can't blame you.
You fly out on the 9 o'clock flight. You get up there at about 10:30. You get into Sydney. You get into the city by 11. Go to Chinatown or go down to the Sydney Fish Market. Have a really good feed. Go and play tourist until sort of around 8:30. Hop on the train back to the airport on the last flight home. Good day out. Cost you.
I was going to say. And go up there and complain about the monorail's not there anymore, and even when it was there, no one went on anyhow. So
I never went on it. I used to go to Sydney 5 or 6 times a year. Never ever went on the monorail.
I did go on the monorail. It wasn't as bad as everyone said it was. I did go on it a couple of times, and it wasn't anywhere near as bad as they said it was. It was all a myth.
The silliest monorail.
It just didn't go anywhere.
There is, or at least was, a silly. I don't know whether it's still there because I haven't been there for 20 years. But Richard, you might remember Broadbeach up at the Gold Coast. The monorail. It basically ran across the road
like a 4-year-old train set.
Yeah, it basically ran across the road. I mean, you'd get on one side, you'd go over to the casino, you'd get off, you'd hop on, and you'd go back again and hop off the other side of the road. It couldn't have been more than a kilometre. If it was that, it was lucky. So I don't know whether that's still there anymore.
Escalated to nowhere.
Yeah, it was.
Escalated.
They obviously saw an artist's impression of, we'll have a monorail sliding elegantly up
They
to the
watched
front of
too
the
much
casino.
of The Simpsons. That's
Then they've turned around and gone, okay, we can't really afford a full monorail, so let's just have one that runs from that side of the road over to this side of the road, because it'll look great in the pictures. Anyway, guys, I think we pretty much exhausted. We certainly exhausted our motor racing for this week. Hope you'll be watching. As I said, keep track of the In Pit Lane webpage, inpitlane.com, over the weekend, because whenever we find sort of decent links to and mostly legal links to motor racing, major international motor racing events. We will certainly run them up there, so you can have a look at them. So you don't have to go around hunting down YouTube or anything like that. It'll be on our page there. So certainly the European Le Mans series, the Le Mans Cup, I imagine will be running there as well. So stay tuned for that. As I said, next week on In Pit Lane, we will have some music from the great Emu War Casualties, and of course somebody from historic Winton to preview that big meeting as well. That's next week, and then the week after that, we are back in the studio. We are back in the studios at RMIT TV Student Television in the heart of Swanston Street, in the bowels of RMIT University, in the heart of Grand Prix City, Melbourne.
They're going to lock us in the dungeon again.
They are literally going to lock us in the dungeon, and we're going to be locked in for all of 2.5 hours. So somehow we've got to get a show. We've got to do a live show and get it set up, rehearsed, recorded, and out of there in 2.5 hours. So boy, that's going to be
it's the compact version.
Going to be something.
Box. Yeah, thank you to Box again. Thanks, Box. Can everyone hit the like button? Yes, that certainly helps in terms of
please like us.
Yeah, hit the like
hit the bell.
button.
Ding ding
Even
ding.
if you don't.
And the bell. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, make sure you do that as well. That certainly helps with the algorithms. We know that every time we do something like that and people subscribe, we get a boost in viewership, and that's really good.
You know what? We might even work out what Instagram does in the next 2 weeks before we go in the studio. Why the hell not?
Listen. I was told yesterday, on Tuesday night, that we need to be really focusing on TikTok. TikTok is how the hell I do anything in less than a minute, I don't know, and especially talk. So,
TikTok.
Dance.
I was going to say, Brett, have you booked us in for dance lessons?
Yeah.
Have you
really? My days of dance lessons are well and truly gone, and I did do dance lessons.
I haven't danced since probably the Sundance Saloon in Bendigo 25 years ago either. So let's not go there either. And that was the only dancing you do was on the pull-up bar and see if you can get 25 presses out of it. Only kidding. TikTok. No, I think we'll give it. Yeah, we'll leave the dancing to the people that we briefly have on stage for the tune-up when we have them on live.
Yeah, at least if you did a TikTok show, you get it done in less than an hour.
I don't.
We're an hour and 7.
I'll give him the best. We'll do Nutbush. We'll do Nutbush for 45 seconds and see if that qualifies for the minute. How's that sound? See if we can remember that.
Okay, everyone. Thanks for joining us. It's been a fun night. We'll see you. We'll see you next week on Full Course Yellow, straight after In Pit Lane on Channel 31 Melbourne. And remember, if you are in Melbourne, head down to the Mr. Boogeyman Bar Wednesday night. We've got the City Sharps. If you sort of mind, you remember the Sharpies and the Skinheads and the Bodgies and the Widget and all that sort of stuff. The City Sharps sort of go back to that, but with new music. They're not a cover band. They do new music in that style. So make it down there. This admission is free. We start about the go on stage at 8:30, so get down there sort of 7:30, 8 o'clock. Come on up and say hi to us and have a drink, and it'll be a great night. Okay, everyone, we'll see you next week. From all of us here, it's as they say in the classics, it's a good night. Have a good weekend and stay safe, and we'll see you then. Bye.
See you next week.